Welcome to Shom Machshava on the Daf. We're holding in Zevachim Daf Mem Zayin, starting in Amud Aleph, Perek, Eizehu, Mekoman. This Perek is a unique Perek. There's something special about this Perek. In the Torah, in Orach Chaim Siman Nun, it says, V'kavu lishnos mishnas Eizehu Mekoman, meaning we start davening by saying Eizehu Mekoman. Says the Beis Yosef, why we say Davka Eizehu Mekoman? He brings the Re'ah that the reason we say it because there's no machlokes in the entire Perek. You open Perek Eizehu Mekoman, you won't find any machlokes in the Mishnayos. And he says, V'hi Mishnah Brura LeMoshe Mesinai. It's clear. Now, mashma they're saying that there's no machlokes at all regarding what it says in Eizehu Mekoman. So many already asked that it's not exact, because if you see many of the Mishnayos and many of the statements in the Mishnayos, even though there's no machlokes mentioned, but it's an argument. Right away in the first Mishnah, we talk about Shiraim. It says that Shiraim is not Me'akev, that we saw earlier in the Masechta. It's a machlokes. So what does Beis Yosef mean there's no machlokes? But the Ritva in Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Amud Beis clarifies what his Rebbe the Roh is saying. And he says as follows. He says, we Perek Eizehu Mekoman is special because there's no machlokes. Says the Ritva, there are parts of Eizehu Mekoman which is not something which is agreed on everybody. Says the Ritva, Mekoman nishna kol haperek kula b'loy machlokes klal hu roi lishnos Eizehu v'shar prokim. Meaning, you're right. There are parts of Eizehu Mekoman which there is arguments about it, but there's no machlokes mentioned in the Mishnah. The fact you have a Perek, there's no machlokes mentioned in the Mishnah, that already makes this Perek unique, makes this Perek special, and that's what we mentioned beginning in the morning. And the Tiferes Yisrael, and here in this Perek, in the Yochin Ois Chavdalet, says the Mishnah uses the Lashon V'necholim lifnim min hakloim. It's eaten within the kloim. Kloim? Kloim is the words used in the Mishkan. The Mishkan was an oil, was a tent, it's called kloim. But in Beis Hamikdash it's not called kloim. So it says the Tiferes Yisrael, the muchach mikan. This whole Perek is no machlokes. Hu baloshon mamish k'mo shenimsa lanu mi-Moshe Rabbeinu Mesinai. This is how Moshe Rabbeinu got this Torah. And that's why we use the Lashon Kloim, because Moshe Rabbeinu was talking during the Midbar. And he sends this Pirush and Marcus where he says, in general, any Mishnah that there's no machlokes, that means that was the Lashon that came from Moshe Rabbeinu. Now you have to add to that, like the Ritva, that although not everything is agreed upon, but it's clear that Moshe Rabbeinu gave us these Mishnayos. It seems that maybe there's a machlokes in how Moshe Rabbeinu said it. But the fact that we're saying it without a machlokes tells us that this is coming from a very early time. And now there's some arguments how it was said, but we're not going to mention, not going to record any machlokes in the Mishnah to show that it's coming from Moshe Rabbeinu from Sinai. And Reuven or Goliath maybe wants to argue that maybe the reason they use kloim is for a different reason, and it's really not coming from such an early time. In the Shar Kavanos and the Arizal is brought down that the reason in the beginning of davening we say Perek Eizehu Mekoman, because there's no machlokes in this Perek, as mentioned before. And when you do what's called Aliyah Soilomis, when you start davening, it's some kind of a void of Aliyah Soilomis. We need to have Shalom and no machlokes, and that's why they chose this Perek. Meaning this Perek reflects Shalom, Shleimus, and no machlokes. And in this Yesod V'Shorish Avodah in Shar HaShmoros, when he speaks about saying Perek Eizehu Mekoman, he says, look at Kisvei Ari, and you see that every Mishnah is another Tikkun B'Yomas Elyonim. And he adds and says that even though there's such deep kavanas over here, but if someone doesn't know the kavanas, he should have the kavanah to do nachas ruach liyotzri uboyri yisbarach v'yisala. And he says this is really an unbelievable kavanah to do in any one of the avodas that we do. Anytime we do something, say should be nachas ruach v'akadosh baruch Hu. But he says that's a person should be careful to say it ba'avonos pirusho b'maton, to understand what it says and to read it slowly, because there's big inyanim happening when it's Eizehu Mekoman. Eizehu Mekoman is fixing inyanim milyonim. So it comes out of what we're learning is Eizehu Mekoman, there's no machlokes. It shows the uniqueness of the Perek. It may even be recorded from a very early time. And with this Perek, that's how we start davening Shachris, because we misaken with this the Yolomis Elyonim. Anyone who wants to join or sponsor the Shom Machshava Shiurim, please email shommachshava@gmail.com.